In a nationwide broadcast on Monday, 27th April 2020, President Muhammadu Buhari announced a phased and gradual easing of lockdown measures in the FCT, Lagos and Ogun states effective from Monday, 4th May 2020, while directing a 2-week total lockdown in Kano State for peculiar reasons. Now, the president added that this will be followed with aggressive reinforcement of testing and contact tracing measures, while allowing the restoration of some economic business activities in certain sectors. Now, the presidential broadcast also made known that the monetary and fiscal authorities will deploy all the necessary provisions needed for production to continue as a way of supporting businesses and traders, which will in turn restore lost jobs in keeping with government's promise to improve the welfare of health workers. President Buhari also announced that a memorandum of understanding on the provision of hazard allowances and other incentives has been signed with key health sector professional associations, in addition to procurement of insurance cover for 5,000 frontline health workers. What are the other highlights of the presidential broadcast? What else can Nigerians expect in the next 1 week of lockdown? These are some of the issues that will engage our guests on Nigeria Today. Welcome to the program. I'm Victor Azu. Now with us in the studio to discuss the lockdown extension is Femi Adesina, Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And also joining us is Dr. Emeka Okengo, a development economist. I hear he's also a farmer.
I am a farmer.
Thank you.
Good evening, Nigeria.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, let me begin with Femi. Give us a sense. What informed the adjustments made to the restriction of movement that we have been on for the past 4 months, 4 weeks rather, by the president? Is it a sign of victory over COVID-19?
No. Not exactly. We are not there yet, even though we hope and expect to get there. But that development was a response to recommendations by the Presidential Task Force.
Okay.
You know, a task force has been put in place which oversees the response to the COVID-19. So at any point in time, the President receives briefings from that task force, and those briefings would determine what the next steps are. So on Sunday, the President received briefing from the Minister of Health and the DG Nigeria Center for Disease Control, and that was what led to that broadcast yesterday.
Might we have a sense of because it appears that the implication of what you say is that the briefing led to the position that has been taken, but it's not quite a sign of victory.
No, not a sign of victory yet, but the task force, when it briefs the President like that, gives some variables, and those variables will guide the President in taking a decision. So there will be scenario painting. This is a possibility, this is a possibility. If we go for this, these are the likely consequences. If we go for this, these are the likely fallout. And the President would then take the option that he believes is best for Nigeria.
Now, Dr. Okengo, the broadcast of Mr. President indicates that the federal government seems to want to implement certain policies that will ensure that the economy continues to function. How possible is this, given that there is still substantial restriction of movement?
Well, take it or leave it, the economy didn't stop functioning, okay? And it is important we take note of that. What happened was that there was a lockdown, okay? Some aspects, I mean, people like Femi were going to work. Committees were set up, they were working. The private sector people came together, they started doing stuff. So the economy technically didn't shut down. But what you could say that there was a lull in activities, in the economy. And then what it is you're seeing now is now trying to now ramp up, trying to now reflate, if you may, okay, activities that can be able to now get us back into full steam.
Now, ramp up, you call it. Are the steps indicated in the broadcast enough to ramp up, as you said?
Remember that the president said that in the course of the week, okay, now the procedures, the process, the demands, the expectations are going to be made very clear, and that it is going to be, mark the word, sector specific. I mean, this is where we must be able to look at it from. So it's not as if everybody is going to be rushing out. You know, there are certain sectors that the president has also mentioned will not function, okay? Right? We will need to close it down because of probably the amount of crowds that they gather at every point in time. But these other sectors that can be able to get our economy to begin to, you know, operate again, the president says that his economic teams, remember that the economic recovery and stimulus team is working. There's another one in the CBN working. There's another one in the Ministry of Agriculture working. So I think by the time you aggregate what all these committees, you know, are doing, we'll be able to have a clearer picture before the end of the week on those sector-specific demands, okay, that will now be implemented as we go forward.
All right, talking sector specifics, Mr. Additional, give us an insight into the insurance cover, you know, for health workers. What does it entail?
Well, you know, it had been in demand. It's not as if there was no insurance cover for some health workers before now, but this became a comprehensive one. And the president was particularly thankful to the insurance sector for facilitating that. So it's something that has become handsome, if you can call it that. We do not expect that any healthcare professional will lose his or her life in the process, but then the cover that they have now is a lot better than what they have ever had in the country. Apart from that cover, they also have allowances that have been also pepped up considerably. From about 5,000 that they were earning, it went as high as 50,000 naira. So it's a general package for healthcare professionals.
Now, I was just thinking, Mr. Dr. Kengo, how prepared do you think Nigerians are to take the next steps? Remember, Mr. President also said that in the days ahead, you know, winning this war against COVID-19 will depend on Nigerians themselves, what they're able to do. And so how prepared would you say Nigerians are as factories, markets, the transport system all get going again?
Well, it's important you also segregate the people you call Nigerians, because you must be able to identify who the champions are, who must lead this preparedness, okay? And the champions...
I make particular reference to the ordinary Nigerian, the man on the street.
I am coming. There's somebody that ordinary Nigerian listens to, okay? And if you come to the markets, you'll be shocked that as something as base as you may, as pepper, there's a chairman of that pepper line. As something as base as maybe you call okra or whatever. So what you need to do is to begin to now, what messaging are you going to be giving to Nigerians to be able to prepare them? Because it's against that message. And the message is, first, you must be able to social distance. Understand that it is your responsibility to see yourself as carrying that disease and see the next man as also being able to infect you. So how do you keep yourself, your family, and the general public safe? That is the first message in this preparedness and openness. Now, how do we deliver this message, and what structures are we going to use to deliver this message? It is not all going to be in English. And this is where I say that we must be able to identify our champions across board. Some of them might be religious leaders. Some of them might be market leaders. Some of them might be politicians. Some of them might be social media champions, okay? Now, the moment you're able to create, like, I mean, look at us here now. When I came in here, as excited as everybody is to be able to shake each other, we laughed over, no more shaking. And nobody took offense. And it is beginning to catch on. So it is for you to be able to be that first champion for yourself and then for your next neighbor. Because if you're going to be thinking about Nigeria, everybody is a Nigerian. But remember that all of us do not have the same cognitive ability to be able to imbibe. There must be people that must be able to do this follow-up. This is probably where NOA might become extremely useful. This is probably where Radio Nigeria NTA, of course, might become very useful, but remember that you have a particular public you're covering. So preparedness, yes, and trust me, and I'm telling this out of my own experience, a lot of people are getting involved in this. Okay, a lot of people you think don't know what is happening. You'll be shocked that when you speak to them, they are very knowledgeable. But the only challenge a lot of people have is this COVID, this thing that everybody is talking about, COVID. So it is important for us to say, no, it is not hunger that will kill you. It might be greed. You understand? Those are two different things. Okay, trust me, you know, a lot of people are talking about, we have passed that stage in Nigeria where it becomes very, very impossible for you not to see the person that can be able to give a helping hand, either from the church level, or from the society level, or from your community level, or something, or even from your village levels. People are beginning to learn to become their brother's keeper. So it is all about us now making everybody a champion by identifying lead champions. And I think it's doable.
All right. Again, Mr. Adesina, you know, following from the explanation he is given, what should be the attitude of Nigerians going into the next 1 week, particularly?
Yes, the attitude should be can do. Can do. We can beat this pandemic if we do the right things. It should not be that when the lockdown begins to ease from Monday, we then all swarm out. It's going to be a gradual easing of the lockdown. It's going to be graduated. It's not that all 190 million Nigerians will all flock out at the same time. It should be a gradual process. You see that when Germany began to reopen, particularly when it reopened the schools, not all students went back to school at the same time. The senior grade who were ready for exams were first brought back so that they can get ready for exam. And then gradually the other grades will return to school. So let Nigerians also realize that it's not that there will be an influx into town immediately. It has to be a gradual and graduated process.
But I also know that there will be an order and somebody has to lay the marker to say this is what the order should be. But we'll come back to that after this break. The program is Nigeria Today. We'll take a short break. The program continues shortly.
COVID-19 transmission is mostly through droplets from sneezing and saliva. The most effective way to protect yourself from the virus is to practice good personal hygiene. Wash hands with soap under running water or use an alcohol-based sanitizer if water is not available. Maintain at least 2 meters distance between yourself and anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Cover your mouth and nose with your elbow or tissue when you cough or sneeze. Dispose of the used tissue immediately. If you have traveled recently to a country with COVID-19 outbreak in the last 14 days and you have a fever, cough, or breathing difficulty, call NCDC toll-free numbers before going to the hospital. This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
Welcome back. It's Nigeria Today, and we've been discussing the presidential broadcast with presidential advisor to the president on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, and a development economist, Dr. Emeka Okengo. Now, taking off from where we stopped earlier, you were talking about the order of things.
Yes.
But what is not explained, what is not stated, is who establishes the order. Is it the Nigerian that will establish it, knowing that everybody has been locked in and they are rearing to go? No. Or is it going to be ordered by someone else because the president didn't specify?
Yes, the president didn't have to specify that in a broadcast, knowing that you have a presidential task force on ground. That task force had kept Nigeria updated in the past weeks. There is almost daily briefing, and Going forward, there will be guidelines on how we begin to reopen gradually, sector by sector. You will observe that in the broadcast, airlines are not to fly yet. So it will get to a point where airlines can start flying. You will notice that in the broadcast there is a restriction on interstate travels.
Yes.
There will be a time when that will be allowed. So at every point in time, whatever becomes permissible will also be announced by the task force through guidelines.
All right, then now, Dr. Kengo, would you say that the plans contained in the presidential broadcast sufficiently address, the huge population of Nigerians who earn daily wages?
I would say that the instructions given, it's important. Okay, you don't just read the speech, you must also read the instructions. The instructions given, I think, would suffice. Because remember that the president also alluded to the states, okay, also adopting the federal model. Okay, because if you're talking about the population now, you're no longer talking about people who live or who now operate within what you might be able to call the national structure. You're also talking about the subnationals. Okay, so what this is all about really is, you might be able to say, is what you call a presidential pronouncement. Okay, the foot soldiers are now supposed to be, you talked about how we're going to be enforcing. It's very easy to enforce. If the guideline says you shouldn't carry more than 3 persons in your car, you must wear your mask, and then you get to a checkpoint, which I don't think should be dismantled, and then you're seen carrying 4 people, what do? Okay, first and foremost, they should impound that car, isolate you, okay, probably test you. And then the moment you begin to enforce some of these rules and people begin to take them seriously, then enforcement is very important. But for whatever it is, remember that Nigeria, also wasn't run as a banana republic. We had systems in place. And all you need to do is to be able to now aggregate these systems. For me, what is most important for everybody now, okay, in this country, is what you might be able to call nutrition and phyto support. What do I mean by that? We must be able to, eat right, and then probably now support our immune systems. Because anybody who says we are going to beat coronavirus, please ask him if we are beating common cold. Because he is the elder brother of coronavirus. It is going to be here forever. Okay? It's a flu. Okay? Viruses never. What you do is that you treat them. You don't cure them. Okay? But those who eventually now catch it might now develop some kind of antibodies and then some immune against it. So what is important for us to be able to, put out there is that, yes, when this novel virus is understood, characteristics understood, we're able to probably now, run a protocol either by developing a vaccine or developing, an immune support system that can be able to help us stave it off. But if anybody says to you that coronavirus will end and nobody will get it again, then the person does not have a very good understanding about viruses.
But I haven't addressed, because my worry, the president himself acknowledged this.
Yes.
Nigerians on daily wages.
Yes.
How do these plans cater for them?
Very simple. Let me tell you, most of us, you're talking about Nigerians on daily wages. There are lawyers who are on daily wages. There are doctors who are on daily wages. It's important to appreciate that. Okay? Now, there are businessmen who are on daily wages. In fact, there are businessmen who are not even on daily wages. They might earn once in 3 or 4 or 5 months. So what is important is for you you're looking at this what you might be able to call the low-level cadre people who need to go and fry
survival.
Now, listen, the opportunities that this hearing presents, I've always made this argument that Ukraine has 46 million hectares of land. It is the biggest land mass in Europe. Nigeria has 86 million arable. Okay? Now, what does that mean? We can actually commit 65 million people back into agriculture with just a charge to produce only 1 kg, okay, of something that we cannot be able to ramp up. Now, this is where our food production, and I'm not talking agriculture here now, I'm talking food production. Okay? Now, look at phyto. Look at what Madagascar had done. Okay? They are beating this thing by using their plant extracts. Okay? Now, our medicinal plant industry will shock you that there's an agency that will develop 5 volumes of medicinal plants. Most people when I was coming in here and somebody said to me, Doctor, you look as if you have shedded some weight. I say yes, because I am living on garlic, I'm living on mint, I am living on hibiscus, I'm living on ginger. That's what my wife loads on my system, and vegetables. And I haven't been this healthy in a very long while. Now, these things need to be produced, because right now we are now producing it on some kind of pedestrian basis. Okay, so if you commit to knowing that you have 65 million people that you can feed, or 200 million people that you can feed, and you have a workforce of over 65 million that can actually produce for these 200 million and the 1.3 billion in Africa, I tell people this clearly. This pandemic can create for us 15 million jobs, and I want to be held to my words.
All right. Now, Mr. Additional, earlier you alluded to the restriction of interstate movement, in the coming days and all of that. But can these businesses that are expected to take off again in the coming days, can they really, really take off when they cannot move from state to state?
Well, it depends on the kind of businesses they are. There are exemptions even for interstate movements. If you are into agriculture, food production, medicaments, pharmaceuticals, and all that, you are allowed to move. There are exemptions for all that, even from one state to the other. So it's just the general movement that is not deemed to be essential that cannot be done. But if you're carrying food, you're carrying medicine, and other things that have to do with life and health, that you can move.
Away from that, the total lockdown in Kano, for instance,
Yes.
is this in tandem with what the state wants? And I ask because there is a peculiar rule in Kano dealing with, of course, a peculiar issue. And you need to understand, is the state government in sync with this?
Yeah, if you recall the first broadcast, when the president was going to shut down Lagos, FCT and Ogun states, he said in consultation with the governors of Lagos and Ogun and the minister of the Federal Capital Territory, he was shutting down the state. So that of Kano is also in consultation with the governor of the state. The president will not unilaterally shut down a state without consulting with the governor.
All right, now let me give my last 1 minute to Dr. Kengu. Palliatives have been an issue in spite of the good intentions of government. There have been a lot of grumblings here and there about the palliatives. What do you think can be better done so that while people stay at home, there will be something you can really call these palliatives?
Let me answer with a story. You're an Igbo
A story
man.
in 1 minute?
Yes, in 1 minute. They say that if you cook for the public, okay, they will eat and ask you for more. But if the public cooks for you, you won't take a spoon. What does this mean? If you cook 10 bags of rice for your wedding, some people will say they didn't get. Now, what is important is that we must be able to learn lessons from what it is we've done. At the local levels, like I said to you, practically everybody is involved in reaching out to everybody. So all we need to do is to be able to now probably set up some kind of information, machinery that anything you're doing, please let us be able to acknowledge you. You will be shocked. In my own village, okay, we listed 130 families, and every member of my village, a lockdown or lockup who could afford it was made to pay 10,000. We raised over 2 million, and those 130 people are on these palliatives from us in my little community, and so many other communities are doing the same thing. So the palliative things is all about us understanding, like I said to you, that there's a difference. I'm not trying to say people are not hungry, but there's a difference between hunger and greed. That's my last word.
I wish we could talk on and on. Dr. Emeka Kengu, development economist and farmer. Thank you for your perspectives.
Proud farmers.
Thank you for your perspectives. And very senior colleague and special advisor to Mr. President on media and publicity, Femi Adesina. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Well, Nigeria Today returns tomorrow, same time, and you can watch this and other editions of the program on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. My name is Victor Azul. Thank you for watching.